Hi everybody, welcome back to my booktube channel. My name is Sukaja, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about all the books I read in the month of February. I can't believe it's already March. Can you guys believe it? Like, this year has just been going really fast. I don't know if I'll be able to reach my goal of reading 40 books this year. For the last 2 years I've had an average of 36 per year, so I'm hoping that this year I'm going to read a little more. But in the meantime, let's look at the 3 books that I read in February. Out of these 3, one of them was literary fiction, the other was historical fiction, and third was a memoir. So I've read quite diversely, and 2 authors out of 3 were women and 1 was male. And one of the books that I'm going to talk about is also a Japanese translation, so it's a pretty diverse bunch. So let's deep dive into the 3 books. The first book that I read in the month of February was Independence by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, who is a Bengali writer from India. Independence is one of her recent novels. She is most famously known for writing The Palace of Illusions as well as The Last Queen. The Last Queen is a book I have, and Palace of Illusions is a book I enjoyed reading. It was a retelling of Sita, and I really loved how she gave us a story that's really memorable, a slight modern twist as well. With Independence, she tries something different. She goes into the modern period when India just got its independence. In this book, there are cameos from really famous people like Sarojini Naidu, as well as Mahatma Gandhi and Nehruji. You kind of live the experience of receiving independence in India through these characters. And the kind of characters here, they develop an emotional bond with the reader. That's the kind of characters she creates. So there are 3 memorable characters here. There are 3 sisters, and the whole story revolves around the lives of these 3 sisters. There's Priya, who is an ambitious young woman who is looking to become a doctor and follow in the footsteps of her father, who was also a doctor. There's also Jamini, the person who's got a bit of a limp. So because she has a limp, people view her differently in the society and in the village, etc. And she wonders if she'll ever get married. Now the third person is Deepa. So Deepa is somebody who does her own thing irrespective of what society feels, right? So they're very different characters, and you look at each of their lives and how each of their lives play out and go and branch out into different paths and come together at some points in the novel. Mainly, I think this is Priya's story as well, and how she forays into medicine when there was no previous path carved out for her in the medical field. She is very ambitious and wants to become a doctor, so she travels all the way to the US as well, and she meets people there. So it's a very ambitious novel in that it tries to showcase a lot of things that were happening simultaneously in India in 1947, as well as the is coming towards the big decision of partition and what were the repercussions of partition. This was a very eye-opening book for me, because while I have read a lot of stories about partition, this book really, through fiction, gives us the view of the cost at which we got independence, the partition of Bengal as well as the partition of the north of India into Pakistan, and how drawing that line led to a lot of communal violence, and we get to witness that violence in this book. I would say it's a pretty emotional read, but at the same time it's fast-paced as well, quite a page turner. It does get you invested in the lives of these characters, and you do want to know what happens to them. I would love to see this book being made into a film. I think it has a lot of potential, and it's also historical fiction done really well. I would definitely want to read another book set in this time period or any other Indian history time period by Chitra if she were to write one. That's what I have to say about this. If you're a historical fiction buff, what are you waiting for? Like, pick this up. It's going to give you a lot of insight into how things were back in 1947 in India, in Bengal especially, in the lives of women who lived in that time. So that's about this book. Now the second book I read is Haruki Murakami's What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. I have mixed feelings about this book, and because one of my friends who is Japanese and lives in Japan and has studied English literature and specialized in it, told me that she believes that Murakami has lifted a lot of texts and a lot of his works are not his own, and that he has taken from Raymond Carver's texts. Now I'm not somebody who's read any of Raymond Carver's works, but if you have, then you would be able to form correlations between Murakami's novels and stories and his books. But yeah, I'm keeping that in mind and still going to try and give you an unbiased review of this book, because I haven't read What I Talk About When I Talk About Love, which is the book that Murakami mentions in this book, but my friend claims was the inspiration for this, and more than just inspiration, it has a lot of elements that this book has as well, right? So that said, let's just look at what this book at its face value does. What was really interesting for me is that I never thought of Murakami as someone apart from a novelist. He's majorly invested in running, and he's somebody who makes sure he lives a disciplined life, and he kind of correlates his approach to writing and how running has helped him write well, and how running is something without which he would never have been able to write so many books. You get an insight into his life, how he views the world, what is this craze that he has formed for running, where did that come from. He knows himself pretty well, and that's something he keeps saying throughout this book. At one point I even found it a little annoying that he said that he knows himself so well and all of that. Like, I mean, we get the point, right? This book, he's very careful not to delve into his personal life, and of course everybody wants to know about his personal life and about his life with his wife and all of that, but we don't get any of that. It's just about running, as the name implies here. He talks about a series of marathons that he's given around the world that he's participated in. He's participated in the New York Marathon that runs across Central Park. He's participated in Hawaii, he's done a few, and he's done a few in Japan as well. So he talks about all of those experiences and how running is a very meditative thing. Now, the thing I liked most about this book is the part where he talks about it in a very philosophical way. He talks about how one point when he was running a 61-mile marathon, and I really think that's crazy for somebody who's really old. So he started running when he was 33. He continues to run until he's 59, 60 and such, right, for 30-year career. It's pretty mind-blowing in that sense, and it's very inspiring as well. I feel like I can suddenly start running and become a marathon runner right now. That's how I felt after reading this book. The part that I liked the most was the metaphysical part, when he talks about how when he's running, he loses himself and he forgets what's going on around him, and he's just a mechanical being. He notices how his body is moving like a robot, and he's just in motion, and he doesn't have to make any effort to be in that state, right? So that's what he talks about, and that was really mind-blowing for me, because there are a lot of activities in our day-to-day lives that we take for granted, but then something or the other, if we pursue it with our whole heart, like even if it's painting or it's reading or running, you will end up having this meditative experience if you really focus on the present and if you really focus on doing what you're doing. That's what I have to say. I also read this book called Indelicacy by Amina Kane. I was always intrigued about this book from day one, especially because the cover is that of a painting. Reminds me of maybe something set in Amsterdam in the period of the 16th century. But this book, interestingly, does not give us a timeline. It does not have a particular setting. It's ambiguous throughout, and you just know that it's some character living life in some century. And there are references to carriages and stuff, but it doesn't give you a clear-cut timeline to base your story in. More than a story, this book is one of literary merit. It's definitely the kind of book that will make you think, and as you read, you will want to kind of pay attention, because that's what good literary fiction does. In this book, there's a lot about the gaze, not just the male gaze, but the female gaze as well. And this book largely deals with paintings. So here's the main gist of the book. There's a woman. She works at this gallery, and she's just a cleaning woman, but she sometimes hopes that she would be able to view art in a way that makes her a cut above the rest. So it's about class. It's also about gender. It's about the limitations society puts on women and how you break from those limitations and seize your agency. And that's what the character ultimately ends up doing. She participates in the making of art. At the end of this book, it culminates up to that point. But there are definitely a lot of references to looking and being looked at. And if you're careful while you read, you will be able to point those areas out in your reading. This aspirational woman who wants to be more than a cleaning lady at this gallery and wants to be able to understand art in a very deep manner. She already does, but because of her class situation, she's not able to break from those limitations that are put on her by society. So it's a very interesting book in that sense, and if this sounds intriguing to you, I would ask you to pick this up as well. So those were the books that I read in February. I'm looking forward to reading much more in March, but let's see if that happens. Anyway, I will be back with another bookish video soon. In the meantime, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and also hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified every time I post a new video. I will see you very soon. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane. Bye.